Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And this is day 2 of the Analyst Day for the carriers. Today is T-Mobile's day. And the call is still ongoing, but it's very, very different from what Verizon presented yesterday. They're breaking it down in each individual business segment, and they're discussing that. For now, for myself, I have enough info to make a video to give you the update and to kind of clarify some things and to give you my take on it. So before I get the video started, I just want to clarify that everything that T-Mobile is speaking of and that I'm going to talk about and give my take on is mostly upside. There's a lot of upside for T-Mobile in segments that they've never competed in or had any share in to begin with. So it's all upside. So I wanted to talk about that and give you guys my take on that. So the picture I have here is, as you can see, massive momentum on network deployment. So this will be the only picture I'll leave on the screen, so you guys can pause it or read it however you would like, and then I'll just discuss what I feel happened and what took place, and then give you guys my take on it. So extended range 5G, ultra capacity 5G, and then sites. So this is what I anticipated. This was just a big update. There wasn't anything new. It wasn't like what we were waiting to hear from Verizon yesterday on how they approach C-band and spending. This wasn't it for T-Mobile. This is just a big, more detailed update, in my opinion. So over 300 million people covered by the end of 2021, 97% of Americans covered by the end of 2022, and bringing 5G to every corner of this country with extended range 5G, which most of you know is band 71 and 71 600 megahertz. Is this important? Yes. This extended range LTE is going to allow them into the rural penetration. That is a segment that they really don't have a lot of reach, a lot of share. They don't at all. They never competed there. That's been a stronghold of Verizon and AT&T's. So Verizon and AT&T really don't have any upside in those areas. They likely just compete back and forth against each other. They're pulling in 2 customers and then giving away 3 customers to the other. So it's kind of a back and forth between the two. But now that T-Mobile comes into play, now there's additional competition. And let me explain what I mean. So in a business sense, I've previously ran a Radio Shack years ago, and we had a lot to do with wireless. They sold wireless, and not just a few or some. They sold all wireless. I was selling Net 10, TracFone, Boost, Cricket, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T. The only brand that we didn't sell was T-Mobile at the time when I started. I know it was in there previously, but when I was working there as the store manager, there was no T-Mobile at that time. And I learned about markets and penetration and share and getting people in. And there's a percentage that you, of course, target. And then you look at the percentage that you may consider a win. And in business, if there's upside, it's not a lot. So say if you reach with your marketing, which is another topic that I'll discuss here later in the video, if you can reach a demographic in rural America with your marketing, which they're going to have to spend separately on marketing in rural America because a lot of people there don't even know that T-Mobile exists or has any 5G coverage there. So you target, let's say, 100% of a certain population in a town, small town. And then you go throughout the weeks and months, and then you say, okay, how much of this market can I potentially pull in? Since T-Mobile has absolutely no share in a lot of these markets, and that's still ongoing. In some smaller towns in rural America, T-Mobile has service there, but they have no retail presence. So that's more upside for them as they bring those retail stores to those markets. And as mentioned during this meeting, their T-Mobile retail stores will start selling Metro. So Metro will not have a presence, at least the dealers, they won't have a presence in these markets. It'll just be T-Mobile selling all the brands in one store, which is more cost effective, I would assume. But that's what they're saying. That's how they're going to operate that. So what if they only get 5 or 10% of that market to come to T-Mobile? In a business sense, that is a win. That is a win across the board. Remember, they had nothing. They had zero. So something is better than nothing. If they get 5, 10%, then do they stop? No, they continue penetrating the market. They continue marketing, and they try to grow that business each year as time goes by. So they start really competing. So how does that competition even start? Well, as you see on the screen, it starts with network. It has to be the network. It has to be their product, because there they can upsell to home internet. I mean, they can upsell all of their services once they have their network expanded in these markets. So just to read off the ultra capacity 5G, which is the 2.5 they got from Sprint, 200 million covered by the end of 2021 this year, over 250 million the end of 22, and 90% of Americans covered by the end of 2023 with the ultra capacity 2.5. Does that unlock whole new capabilities and technologies? Sure, it does. T-Mobile is not really speaking about investing in these technologies. They haven't yet, for whatever reason, they're not really talking about that now. So that's something that they'll maybe do in the future. I think right now they are so caught up on this merger and the synergies and everything that they really don't want to get sidetracked by anything else. So that'll likely come at a later time. But that 2.5 is very, very valuable for them for monetization. Again, it's all upside. As I mentioned, rural America is all upside because they're starting at technically zero. They may have, if we look at the numbers, they may have 5-6% share, maybe, and that's just a maybe. I'm guessing here, but even that is really nothing. They're really starting at nothing. So so that's also the same case with the home internet. They started offering the product in the pilot stage at zero. They had nothing. Now they're saying they have a little over 100,000 customers, subscribers on home internet, and had to turn people away. That's massive. That means there is a huge demand. And I personally feel that the 7 to 8 million that they projected to gain customers over the next 5 years is likely going to be blown out the water. Once this is commercially, officially launched, it's going to be blown out the water. So one metric that I wanted to speak of before I move on the home internet, this is the one that caught me by surprise. It blindsided me, which is something very, very, very interesting and very important to T-Mobile. Out of the 100,000 or a little over 100,000 subscribers that T-Mobile gained on home internet, those customers did not use T-Mobile for wireless. They've used a competitor for wireless. T-Mobile was able to capitalize on that, and that is big. That is huge. They were able to gain 35% of that little over 100,000 home internet customers and switch them to a T-Mobile wireless account. That is massive. I think that will help them big time in the future. Let's say they get to that 7-8 million, they get 30 to 40% of that 7-8 million into T-Mobile. That'll help them generate more revenue and postpaid growth on that as well. I think that is massive. That is a very smart strategic thing that T-Mobile is doing there. How did they accomplish that? I don't know. Did they approach that customer after the fact? Did they sell them right when they called about the product? That would be something that I would be interesting to know. Did they sell it in store? I mean, it's very great that that's happening. And I would say percentage wise, that's a very high percentage of conversion rates. So T-Mobile is going to happily launch this commercially at the end of the month. Let's say this year they gain a total of 1 million customers onto the home internet, and they can convert 35% of that to switch over to wireless as well, and maybe even T-Vision. I think those numbers are going to fare very well for the investors. And again, it's all upside. And then the upside is leading to additional growth on your postpaid business. That's a win-win in my book. I see that as a win-win. So, and then the final slide is sites. So 85,000 macro sites ending. That'll be the total amount of sites once this progress is done. Just to update you on that as well. End of next year, Sprint Keep sites will be done, upgraded with the full portfolio, the 600 2.5 and the 1900 AWS, everything. The entire portfolio will be done on the Sprint sites, upgraded by the end of next year, according to Neville. He stated that during his presentation. So again, they're moving very quickly on this as well. Very, very, very quickly. So that means they do have capital allocation to set aside to accomplish this. And it is likely going to start at the second half of this year. What I'm hearing, starting in May, Sprint Keep sites take priority. So that helps, of course, T-Mobile gain the additional densification, as stated by Neville, to make C-band work. And those are already existing sites that they don't have to construct or get permits for or pay a large amount. They just have to physically touch the site and upgrade it and integrate it into the network. So that is something massively underrated, in my opinion, that they are able to add that 12 to 13,000 Sprint Keep sites into the network for further densification on a already dense grid meant and built with mid-band in mind since HSPA. So for coverage, it says thousands of new coverage sites, very vague. They didn't really explain much. They gave no time frames. So Neville really didn't talk about that too much. I wish he would have elaborated on that more. We know it's about 10 to 12,000 new build sites. So NSB, newly site builds, is what that's called. And that will, in my opinion, likely go into the rural expansion that they have planned for the Californias and the Montanas, the more rural parts of America. That's likely what they will try to expand into and reach full parity with the competition in terms of square miles of the entire mass of the United States. Not just reach parity on the POPs, points of presence. And that's just, the points of presence really just means is that they have a point of presence in that area, that frequency exists with reach into that area. That's really, really what that means. And where there's actual population that is making use of that frequency, from what I've been told. So that really, the POPs is it can kind of be deceiving, because it'll say 300 million, but then it's like, hey, you don't really match that with the square miles. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. And then ending 50,000 small cells, likely disappointing. The small cells is that's a little disappointing. The reason I say that is because Verizon at the end of this year is going to be at 31,000 small cells. So it seems T-Mobile is massively understating the small cells. Now, where it could be a bit different, just to kind of squeeze this in before I end the video, T-Mobile mainly built their site densification in the suburban and urban markets with macros. So they've always been more dense on their grid than the competition. Verizon and AT&T started on low-band spacing because they had low-band, T-Mobile did not. So in some of these areas, they are tightly dense. I've told you guys, I've seen videos, New York City, macros 1,500 feet apart. It's really hard to squeeze small cells in that footprint. I mean, that's literally overlapping. So they will very strategically place these small cells, but there won't be nowhere near the volume or levels of the AT&Ts and Verizons. I even predict AT&T's small cell C-RAN to be far more than even Verizon's, because Verizon does have more sites versus in terms of densification versus AT&T. Now AT&T's is tomorrow, so we'll make that video tomorrow, but AT&T will have to build more sites and gain more densification for C-band, so they will have to speak about that tomorrow, how they achieve this. But as I've mentioned many times, on the nationwide scale, AT&T's densification is likely nowhere near T-Mobile's or Verizon's. So they will have to try to squeeze that in somewhere within the next 3 years for AT&T to get that network really, really, really dense and on par with the competition. So again, from a business perspective, I think T-Mobile has all the momentum right now. I think we're going to start seeing an explosion of growth. They're predicting that. I don't know on a quarterly basis how they're going to present the numbers in terms of the home internet and the T-Vision and then the postpaid growth and prepaid. But they will have to continue speaking on that. And as they create hype behind that, and another thing too, really quickly, they are saying the perception of network is changing in their favor. It's happening, of course, at a slower pace than they would like it. They would like that, of course, to accelerate because they're confident in their product. But they say it is changing in their favor. So brand recognition, brand perception, word of mouth, it's working, and it's working wonders for them, according to what Matt Stafford said during his presentation. He's the chief marketing officer, and he's the brains behind the marketing and getting T-Mobile into great spots and great, momentum, and just where T-Mobile is as a marketing machine today. And apparently he has the green light to spend a abundance of money on marketing, and I think that plays a huge factor, especially as they get into rural America. And they'll have to spend marketing dollars, big marketing dollars, to get that market share there. But I think it will pay off in the long run. And then just one more thing before I end the video. Again, the capital allocation was talked about from Neville and Mike Sievert. And I think they're onto something. So they're purely funding this entire network build through the synergies. So they just essentially just combined T-Mobile's CapEx and Sprint's CapEx, and they came to the $12 billion. So mobile is literally funding the network and the growth and the future operations and the upside and into the home internet. It's all being funded by the $12 billion synergies that they got from the Sprint merger. So they aren't having to, like what likely AT&T, because we don't know until tomorrow, and Verizon, they're pulling money from cash flow and they're adding it to the additional capital expense, as Verizon said, $10 billion over 3 years, strictly for C-band. That's something that T-Mobile doesn't have to do. So on the balance sheet, they are going to be better positioned to compete, or to, if the competition gets more aggressive, they can get more aggressive, maybe even more future spectrum purchases. They're just more flexible positioned to do that because they don't have to spend and pull from cash flow and go into more debt or whatnot to get whatever they want to get in the future, or compete even more. Who knows? Maybe they start outdoing AT&T's phone promos. We don't know. That's something that T-Mobile will decide on. But I want to hear from you in the comment section down below. Again, T-Mobile's very straightforward, and it was just merely an update versus what Verizon presented last night, and likely what we would hear from AT&T tomorrow. So if you are new to the channel, or you have been on the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when the content does go live. Make sure to follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.